development. And if you are my age, then you know your parents have made it if they took you on a Club Med holiday. That was like really next tier. So he has been part of the team that has been building those dreams. He has been involved with the project since 2018. So it's not only in government where it takes a little longer to get things done, just joking, Chris, and played an integral part in the early days alongside Club Med to make the project a reality. Chris, for all his sins, is also a qualified chartered accountant, so a slim ook, 25 years experience in property development, project finance and investment banking in Africa, Europe and North America. Ladies and gentlemen, his new name, Chris Dutoit.
Don't even know if it's morning or afternoon yet. I think it's still morning, right? Dear Minister McPherson, he's probably busy with media, but Minister McPherson, Deputy Minister Zikalala, Program Director, all distinguished guests, there's a very long list, so you will excuse me by just announcing all protocols observed. Members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, collapse to confidence. It's a tagline that I think we invented in KZN. We did our very best for a long time to collapse that province with all sorts of dramas, natural disasters, and yeah, I think it's a good tagline to discuss with you today. I can talk about this project for hours. I've been involved since 2018, as the program director said, but I'll try and stick to my 15 minutes. There's a lot to talk about and there's a lot to be proud of. But when people look at the finished Club Med development, they see beautiful architecture, world-class hospitality and breathtaking landscapes. What they don't see is the extraordinary collaboration between unbelievable people that made it possible. Today I want to share why I believe the project comprising the beach resort at Tinley Manor in KZN and the Vikela Safari Lodge near Pongola as one of South Africa's finest examples of public-private collaboration delivering real economic impact for the region. For a start, both projects came in under budget and on program, which is remarkable for nearly 2.5 billion rand of investment. And it's because this project was never simply about constructing two luxury resorts. It was about demonstrating what South Africa can achieve when government, private enterprise, communities, and professionals unite behind a common cause and a common vision. The project's created two unique tourism destinations unlike anything currently available in South Africa. It's a world-class beachfront resort on KwaZulu-Natal's north coast, near the village of Tinley Manor, and quite a remote location, but also a luxury safari lodge in northern KwaZulu-Natal near the town of Pongola. Together, they offer visitors a seamless beach and bush experience that attracts international tourism while showcasing South Africa's natural beauty. The good news is you can always build the best financial forecasts and do the best planning and data research, but the good news is the project is actually selling very well. The first 650 paying guests will arrive at King Shaka International Airport tomorrow. And at the same time, the first 50 safari guests will experience Zululand's beauty for the very first time ever. So our official launch and opening is tomorrow, the 4th of July. These developments represent far more than tourism. They represent investment, significant investment by South African institutions and South African banks. It represents confidence, employment, skills development in the region, regional economic growth, and a belief that South Africa remains capable of delivering projects of international significance. My colleagues at Club Med have repeatedly told us over the last 5-6 years, this is the best beach resort in their portfolio. To appreciate what collaboration achieves, it's worth considering the scale. The beach resort alone occupies approximately 30 hectares and consists of 75 individual buildings with 411 rooms and a capacity of just over 900 guests. The Safari Lodge is built on a 42-hectare enclosed area within an 18,000-hectare private Big Five game reserve with 75 luxury safari tents. You can see some of the images on the screen behind me. Behind what guests will experience lies an enormous amount of infrastructure. Historically, the greatest hurdle to any new development, as many of you know, is the availability of infrastructure. And these two resorts are in remote locations. Tinimana is a tiny village, but yeah, the resort was built on a former sugarcane farm. So to get all of this right, obviously takes teamwork. Just some of the interesting facts: we built a 1.4 million litre sewer package plant. We laid 3 kilometers of water infrastructure. We built a 1.2 million litre reservoir. We laid 4 kilometers of new electrical infrastructure and a 1 megawatt solar PV plant. That generates about 45% of the resort's daily electricity. We also installed more than 3.5 kilometers of stormwater infrastructure. And all of the infrastructure that was built were overspec'd to service local areas and trigger further development and investment in the region. So this makes development accessible for the first time in areas north of Tinimana, as well as the areas around Pongola. Beyond the beach resort itself, the project included the construction of an entirely new dam and the revitalization of the estuary, creating an improved ecological environment, now supporting indigenous species such as the southern mouth brooder and the dusky sleeperfish, which I've never heard of before, but our environmentalists found them in the dam. Of course, there's the ongoing conservation at the Big Five Game Reserve, which is so close to all of our hearts here in South Africa. These statistics are impressive, but they don't really tell the whole story. People often think public-private collaboration is simply about funding. This project proves otherwise. Collaboration became the delivery mechanism itself. Government created an enabling environment, and private investors committed substantial capital to this project. Club Med brings the international hospitality expertise and operational excellence. Consultants translated vision into design, and contractors transformed drawings into reality. Communities became active participants rather than passive observers, and every partner brought different priorities. Yet everyone remained aligned behind one shared objective, and that alignment became one of the project's greatest strengths. We heard yesterday the Green Star Building Council awarded a 4-star new build version 2 design certification for this project, the first ever achieved in this country. Large projects succeed because institutions work together rather than independently, and on this project, collaboration occurred daily. I will highlight only a few of the standouts in this regard. The Ilembe District Municipality worked alongside the project team to facilitate critical municipal services. The Kwadakuza Municipality Building Control Department were outstanding and partnered with us throughout the approval process, ensuring planning and building approvals could be concluded efficiently while maintaining the highest standards. The Department of Tourism supported this project throughout its development, recognizing its strategic importance to South Africa's tourism sector as an all-inclusive beach resort. This is the first of its kind in the country. As opening approached, the Department of Home Affairs granted visa waivers for 72 international specialists, enabling Club Med's experienced operational teams to train local employees and ensure a successful opening. Even though this is a sensitive issue in our country at the moment, hiring foreign specialists creates jobs, and we have to be kind to our neighbors and our visitors. These were not isolated interventions, though. They were examples of government acting as an active development partner, and that is exactly what successful public-private collaboration should look like. At its peak, the two projects hosted more than 2,400 people on site every day, and more importantly, over half of those workers lived within 5 kilometers of the two resorts. That means the economic impact was immediate and local, and the projects comprised 14 major construction contracts ranging in value from approximately 40 million to 360 million rand each, supported by dozens of specialists, some subcontractors and suppliers, and a lot of panados for me. Beyond those directly employed, thousands more benefited through the wider construction supply chain across KZN and the wider South Africa. The project has now created more than 600 permanent operational jobs across the beach resort and the Vikela Safari Lodge, which is a lasting legacy of infrastructure investment in two very remote locations. But one statistic stands above all the others. Together, every contractor, consultant, and worker achieved more than 5 million man-hours without a lost time injury. Considering the complexity of the sites, the number of contractors, vehicles, and daily activities, this is an extraordinary accomplishment. It speaks to professionalism, planning and discipline, and above all, mutual respect. Over the past several years, consultant offices have produced countless drawings, specifications, programs, contracts, meeting minutes, certificates, and technical reports. And these documents were essential, but they did not build this project. This project was built by people. Relationships. Every organization contributed a piece of an enormous jigsaw puzzle through architects, engineers, consultants, local communities, quantity surveyors, government officials, Club Med themselves, community representatives, and every piece depended on the others. No individual organization could have delivered this project alone. That is the essence of public-private collaboration. Perhaps one of the greatest achievements is what this project says about South Africa itself, though. It demonstrates that South African professionals remain capable of designing, procuring, and delivering projects to world-class international standards. It demonstrates that our public institutions can become true development partners. It demonstrates that international investors can have confidence in South Africa, and it demonstrates that local communities can become genuine beneficiaries of economic development. If someone asked me what this project represents, I would not begin by talking about the 411 resort rooms or the 75 luxury safari tents or the 9 swimming pools or 850 televisions. Those are remarkable achievements, but they're not simply the physical outcome. The real achievement is that hundreds of organizations and thousands of people chose collaboration over complexity. Different objectives became one shared purpose, and different institutions became one partnership. That's why the Club Med South Africa Beach Resort and Vikela Safari Lodge stand as far more than world-class tourism destinations. They stand as proof that public-private collaboration is not merely a governance model, it's one of the most powerful delivery mechanisms available to us here in South Africa. If we can replicate the spirit of partnership demonstrated on this project, there's no reason why South Africa cannot deliver many more developments of this scale, complexity, and significance. Thank you very much.
When one looks at your laptop, it shows images of things that's supposed to make you calm. And as Chris was doing his presentation, that's pretty much what the images did behind. But those weren't AI images. Those were in our backyard, in our country. So I was incredibly proud of watching that, Chris, from the background. Thank you for what you have achieved and brought to our country. Now, 2.5 billion rand investment coming in on program, on budget. I can just imagine what that Gantt chart had to look like. But then again, I reflected and I quickly did a calculation. 2.5 billion, Chris, sorry, it's not a lot of money. I went to a well-known retailer and bought a punnet of Avos and an orchid, and it felt pretty close to 2.5 billion. As part of my portfolio in my day-to-day job is training and development, and I see bulk funding applications coming in every year for the annual Western Cape Property Developers Forum. So our next speaker and his team obviously does something right. Founded in 2008, the WCPDF is a registered non-profit with the aim to create awareness, address the challenges that face the property development and construction industry, and to be the collective voice of the industry in the Western Cape. They focus on the full production line of private and public property projects and associated infrastructure provision. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Dion van Zyl.
Good afternoon, good morning. It's still 9 minutes to go. I feel a little bit like I'm stepping into the lion's den. Yandre, thank you. Dr. Misa, thank you for inviting me. I'm not going to go through all the formalities protocol. I'm a private sector operator, so we don't speak quite the same language. But let me do one protocol, and that is in the private sector property development world, irrespective of what we do on stages like this, your mayor is more important than your premier, and your premier is more important than your president. Why am I saying that? Property development and infrastructure happens in a municipality before it happens in a province, before it happens in the country. Yet our legislation, the way we interpret this, does the inverse. National is more important than province. Province is more important than the municipality. And my core submission to you today as delegates is we have got to start to do the inverse. We have got to start to embrace private sector investment locally. Because if we embrace private sector investment locally, I did a quick mental calculation on the previous presentation, on Chris's presentation. If I'm correct, that development will pay in the region of 18 to 20 million rand in property rates per year, and it will pay probably about 3 times that in utilities. It is the private sector investment of this nature that will fund local authorities into the future. And yet, we treat private sector investment as the enemy. And the question is why? I've been reflecting on this, and I have perhaps a little bit of an unfair advantage. MEC Mayor, I'm an ex-Durbanite. Cape Town stole me. I had the privilege of growing up in a civil servant's house in KZN, going to KwaMashu, Kwadabeka, Inanda, with a father who was passionate about infrastructure and delivery. A father who delivered up to 60 schools per year out of the Public Works Department in KZN. A father who built in the region of 30,000 houses throughout his career. And a father who I watched pushing over walls in Inanda because you don't build rubbish for people. Didn't need an NHBRC, didn't need a building council, didn't need. He acted as a civil servant as if it was his own infrastructure. And that is the level of passion that we need to reinstate in this country. We need to start owning infrastructure as the activist and the catalyst. For those of you in the industry, you'll know these numbers, but a typical civil infrastructure project, 27% of the capex goes to people, goes to the professionals, goes to the artisans, goes to the labor. And infrastructure and property development is arguably the quickest way of getting money into the poorest of poor communities. And yet, it is easy in this country to move around billions, if not trillions, in and out of the country at a push of the button, automated computer systems in the financial industry, and yet for you to fix R1 billion worth of capital to the ground will take you, if you're lucky, a minimum of 5 years in application processes. Why? Why are we legislating against fixed capital investment? Why are we legislating against stability? Because fixed capital investment, sticking to the ground, needs a minimum of 20 years to repay itself. 11 years on the capex, 9 years of profit. We should be embracing fixed capital investment as the biggest societal stabilizer. And yet, the property developer is the enemy. Why? Are we seen as being opportunistic? Are we being seen as being greedy? What's the problem? Are we the nuisance? Are we the nuisance that dares to ask, like Chris has asked, the out-of-the-box thinking required? And we're going to see more and more of these mega projects in South Africa, not because government can't do its own projects. Public sector infrastructure, we're pretty good at it. We're very slow, but we're pretty good at it. But we need more than that. Urbanization is real. We're sitting at 63, 64% urbanized. A country like Brazil is 82% urbanized. That means we need 15% more infrastructure and more housing and more shops and more offices in every one of our metropolitan cities. But it's happening, and it's happening with or without government. Let me reflect a little bit on the work of the Western Cape Property Development Forum. So we're a voluntary organization. We have just over 3,000 members. Our membership ranges from listed REITs, from the big REITs, all the way to my favorite members. And that is an organization called the Township Development Forum. This is an organization that was founded in Galicia by a group of individuals that are developing small-scale rental housing. Why this range of membership? Because we all have the same challenges. We all have the same challenges in getting the statutory approvals that are required, to get the funding that are required, and to use exactly the same contractors and artisans that you as the public sector are using. And we challenge ourselves to lobby for a more enabling environment. I said at the beginning of my speech, the mayor is more important than the president. The story of the Township Development Forum in Cape Town is one that, together with ourselves, lobbied for the support for small-scale rental developers. Eddie Andrews is here, the Deputy Mayor of Cape Town. 2.5, 3 years later, Cape Town now has pre-approved building plans for the small-scale property developers in the township. We have removed an 8 to 9 month building plan application process. My question then to the small-scale developers in our township environment, is it enough? And they say to me, no, it's not enough. You as the big developers are able to deal with big bulk infrastructure problems. You're able to fund development contributions ahead of the time. We are not. So the next project is to group small-scale developers together so that they start to fund and act as a slightly bigger developer structure. And these are exciting movements. But it's not to say that Cape Town is unique. It's the same challenges that we have in every other city and municipality in the country. We need to start embrace the small-scale developer in the same way that we embrace Chris and the rest of the guys that are the big-scale developers. It is the sum of the parts that will lead to the capital fixing to the ground for a minimum of 20 years. We recently lost quite a large developer to Argentina. And in conversation with the person on why he was leaving, it's a British citizen, British capital, European capital, was developing quite a lot in South Africa, and elected to move to Argentina. The answer was because when he arrived in Mendoza, city in the west of Argentina, the mayor took him to lunch and said to him, "What can we do for you? We need your capital. What can we do as a quid pro quo to your capital?" And his response was, "I need your intelligence. I need to understand your market. I need to understand what is needed." And within a week, there was a team of senior officials in a workshop environment explaining the mining industry, the fact that it was very difficult to fund new office infrastructure in that area because of the inflation, etc. And he said, "That's fine, I can assist you." And those are the stories that we need to start repeating in this country. We need to start embracing property developers as change agents. Now, let me just by show of hand ask, who has ever built a garage at home? Guess what? You're property developers. And what is the process that you went through with your local authority in getting your garage approved? Or your carport? Or an extension to your house? Or an extension to your head office? Or an extension to your hospital? Or an extension to your factory? It's the same story throughout the country. Which then brings me to my final comment and my challenge to this meeting. If you ask me what I would like to see next year at this conference, I would like to see an award ceremony where the environmental department that has processed the most applications is rewarded. Where the Heritage Department that has processed the most applications is rewarded. Where the municipality that has issued the most occupancy certificates, not building plans, not rezonings, occupancy certificates, because an occupancy certificate is the trigger where your rates start growing, is awarded. That is what I would like to see. I would like to see a nomination for those officials that have gone out of their way to make the impossible possible. I started my presentation telling the story of my father. The father used to take me into township environments, watched him push over walls, watched him build 60 schools a year. That same father of mine is now 88 years old. And I asked him the other day, I said, Dad, how could you do that? And we don't seem to be able to do that today. He said, firstly, my boy, I fired my professionals. If they didn't deliver, they were fired. I said, but were you allowed to? And he sort of looked at me incredulously. He said, delivery was not negotiable. So if we start with that premise, that delivery and growth is not negotiable, then we will realize that a lot of our legislation and a lot of policies have been designed as a precautionary principle, preventing damage, preventing something untoward happen, preventing. That is not growth. We need to review our legislation. We need to consolidate. We need to ask ourselves whether the NHBRC should be sitting on 11 billion cash. Is that solving the problem? And the answer is it's not. We need to start becoming passionate about our construction industry. We need to be serious about artisanal training. We have got less than 50% of our construction capacity than we had in 2010. How dare we talk about growth if we don't have capacity? And these, my friends, are the difficult questions. So Dr. Imesa, when you asked me to come and express a couple of thoughts, you know me, and you do know that I dare to sometimes drop a stone in the pond. I hope it's a constructive stone, and I hope it's something that will inspire us all to think about what is possible versus what excuses we can think out for not delivering. Change will happen with or without regulation. Growth and urbanization will happen with or without permission. The question is, do we want to turn it into positive and constructive growth or allow informality to take over the country? I prefer the formal route. Thank you.
More than just a pebble in the pond, but I'm sure, Doc, in the WhatsApp group, we've already accepted that challenge as well. So our next session, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, and you will excuse me for not taking questions between sessions. I want to stick to time as much as possible. If you've got any questions, feel free to engage us on social media. We will get back to you on any of those. Now I'm going to ask Mr. Sithole Mbanga to please join me on stage from the South African Local Government Association. And then on stage, and no, the protocol officers do not have to worry. It's a plenary session and they are all MEC, so there's no specific order. So I'm going to ask to join me on stage Mr. Martin Meyer from the KwaZulu-Natal, Mr. Tasha Simmers from the Western Cape, Ernest Rachwene from Limpopo, Tulasizwe Tomo from Mpumalanga, Fufe Makatong from the Northern Cape, and Ms. Sipukazi Lusiti from the Eastern Cape. You can join us on stage. The moderator for this session is Mr. Sithole Mbanga. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause.
Always, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Program Director, for a wonderful job that you have done. Please allow me to stand on the protocols and greet everybody that is in the leadership of government, the MECs of Public Works that are here. Just before I start, I would like to congratulate the Council for Built Environment for this initiative and the collaboration, Deputy Minister, that you are driving in conjunction with the Minister. It is a great thing to do. I think it's something that we must marvel upon. My name is Sithole Mbanga. And for purposes of ensuring that I help the organizers catch up to time, I am going to ask a single question applicable across the MECs. That question is, what is your vision of public works in your respective provinces? And of course, you will have sufficient time to answer that question of articulating your vision of public works in your respective provinces. Importantly, what we would like to get from yourselves is, what are you contending with in trying to impact and drive your vision? What are you struggling with? And secondly, how do you see the developers that are here, particularly from the private sector, but I think importantly, developers that are working in the public sector? How do you see them as your soldiers, foot soldiers on the ground that are driving your vision? If necessary, and if we do have the time, we will also then entertain any other comments that you may want to comment on based on what your colleagues in the panel are saying. Some things that you think are of value or that you are learning from your colleagues, or some things that you want to teach or speak to them with the audience. However, before I start, and owing the fact that I come from Salga, I am selfishly going to make this particular point. Firstly, what Mr. Dion van Zyl stated here is fact. Urbanization is happening. It's not waiting for any MEC. It's not waiting for the minister. According to the Integrated Urban Development Framework, which is government's policy intended to tackle South Africa's urbanization, 80% of South Africa will be urbanized by the year 2050. That's reality, full stop. There's no argument, there's no ideology about that. It means if we are to be ahead of the curve, we have to think in a foresighted way. Hence the question, what is your vision currently as you drive public works? Secondly, and because I said I work for Salga, we have started to reposition ourselves. And I'm saying this because the chairperson of the portfolio committee said in her statement, it is important for local government to come on board. And we recognize that as local governments, all 257 municipalities that we are. We are also repositioning and re-engineering our own program. And I want to share with you so that I'm able to position public works. We have identified a 5-pillar program. We are calling it a 5-pillar program or manifesto with which, as Salga, we think the state must support municipalities with. In no particular order, let me start with the first one, giving you some bit of stats. If we are to make local government change and become effective to the public works program, we have to change the formula with which local government is supported by the state. It is not working. The reason why we are seeing failures in local government is because local government does not have sufficient financial resources. However, even if we are to provide more resources to local government also has to take those additional resources with responsibility, not with naughtiness. The current formula says local government will only receive about 9 to 9.5% from the national fiscus. It means local government is unlikely to assist the MECs in their work. It's just one pillar issue that needs to be sorted. Secondly, there is an issue that local government ought to solve in its home: leadership. And leadership is not only the mayors that get elected. Leadership is coming from all sectors of society. The MECs are important to assisting local government. The private sector, the social organizations that are based in local governments are important to building a strong layer and multiplicity of layers of leadership for local government. That's the second pillar of intervention that we are intending or we are beginning to drive as a programmatic support. The third one is the need for us to respond to climate change. So Deputy Minister Zikalala is not mad in his articulation of the threat of climate change. Climate change is real. Let's look at one very practical example. Between December of last year and February of this year, 3 provinces, in fact 5 provinces, were impacted upon by climate change. Let's start, which were the first ones? The Eastern Cape and the Western Cape, almost at the same time between November and December of last year. And then immediately between December and February of this year, Mpumalanga, Limpopo, as well as KwaZulu-Natal. So in a space of 3 to 4 months, 5 provinces were impacted upon and devastated by the impact of climate change. So when we're beginning to put infrastructure, we need to understand the fact that we are going to have to adapt to climate change. Hence the question to the MEC, what is your vision? And we're asking this because we understand that you are different. Some have metropolitans, others of you have deep rural areas. And therefore, there is not going to be a one-size-fits-all coming out of you. So we're quite interested in that particular vision. The third vision is what was stipulated here by Mr. Van Zyl, who spoke just before me. We are not going to be able to drive this country if municipalities are not driving the economy. Fortunately, a minister who is responsible for driving the economy was himself a mayor. When Minister Parkstar was the mayor of Johannesburg, one of his responsibilities before becoming a mayor, at some stage was responsible for driving the economy, at some stage was responsible for driving the finances before being a mayor. What became important is the role that a mayor plays. So we have lost 2 Argentines, I think you were saying. But if the mayors are not there to provide the intelligence through specific data to competitors and to those that want to develop in a particular region, then development is unlikely to happen as quickly as possible. Now, let me come to the last part of this 5 program, which is essential to yourselves: spatial transformation. That is the essence of reversing apartheid. Remember, apartheid planning was conscious. It resulted in situations where communities have to travel for, on average, no less than an hour and a half from places of stay to places of work, resulting today, in terms of our calculations, averaging about 65% spent by households, particularly indigent poor households, spending their monies on transportation. What are we left with today? We are left with something that looks like the Gau-train, for instance. The reality, how nice the Gau-train is, the reality of a Gau-train, as an example, is that it is not lending itself to the poor. And that is because, I wish that the MEC was here, that is because, in part, that particular project was located in specific cities. The suggestion that we're making is that let's start thinking regionally. If you are thinking about eThekwini, think about Dukuza, think about the southern part, think about eThekwini, think about Umsunduzi. That's the context that we would like to make to yourselves. And in so saying, let me start with you, MEC. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be here from the very sunny and much warmer KZN. I can't wait to get on my flight back. But it's great to be with you, where it's almost never summer, it seems. Yes, you know, there's so much to unpack, and I know I don't want to take all the time of my colleagues, and I'll take KZN is stealing again. So I'll try and manage my time very well. I think, first of all, if you ask us what do we see public works and infrastructure in KZN achieving? And just as background, KZN didn't have a Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. We had a Department of Public Works that was twinned with Human Settlements, and only in the formation of the GPU was infrastructure added, and it became a standalone department with its own MEC, just focusing solely on this. And there's three main things. One is we want to use public works and infrastructure to be the driving force in creating the new economic boom within KwaZulu-Natal. Without infrastructure, there is no economic boom. That's the reality. And KZN, you know, we always say this in KZN, if KZN succeeds, South Africa succeeds. It's a reality because of our harbors and where we're located. The second one is, and this is how we measure, because public works is not measured on how many bricks we laid. That's one measurement. Our other measurement is how many jobs did we help create within the province. That's one of the biggest measurements and the most important measurements. And that's why we're very excited that the construction industry is the fastest growing industry for job creation within KwaZulu-Natal. And then the third one is how many economic opportunities did we create for people who didn't play in this game before. Which is why, for instance, we launched something like the She Builds Advisory Forum to create more opportunities and help get more women into the construction industry, both in the public and private sector. And it's something we're very excited about. But if you ask me what's the biggest stumbling blocks for us achieving those goals, you know, KZN had many stumbling blocks that we've managed to start overcoming. There's my good friends that took me off their Christmas card list. They call themselves the construction mafia. I call them scallums. But anyway, you call them what you want. But we've managed to move forward on that. There was a lot of issues with us not being able to pay contractors. So there was a bad relationship between the department and provincial government and our contractors. It's now 10 months that all our contractors are paid within 30 days. So there's some of our stumbling blocks we've overcome. But there's some bigger stumbling blocks that we as a country must work together on. And we need to be brave enough to say it is time for legislative change for this industry and for the sector that public works work in. I know a lot of things are already happening regarding Giyama, but Giyama is the biggest thorn and it's quite often a stumbling block, not a catalyst of moving forward. But there are others. One thing I've realizing more and more is that infrastructure development, and I'm almost at the end, Chair. One of the biggest stumbling blocks we face is the fragmentation of infrastructure delivery within the Republic of South Africa. So some of it happens on national level, some of it happens on provincial level, some of it happens on municipal level. And many people forget that more than 80% of infrastructure development happens by municipalities, not the provincial government or the national government. It's actually municipalities that has to do it. And then it's also fragmented between departments. So I'll give you an example. Let's use one of the clearest examples is roads. Some roads falls under the government, some roads falls under the provincial government, some roads falls under districts, some roads falls under local governments. And it's a mess to figure out who is responsible for which road. There's no coordination, so we build a new road here, but the supply roads are not upgraded. So that's one example. Another example that's, I think, very applicable to us these days is water. Water is the responsibility of the national government and district municipalities. Provincial government plays no role, officially. And I think that's a mistake. So I do think we need much better coordination and to fix the fragmentation. And I want to touch quickly on the municipalities, Chairperson. One thing we've also done, because you're absolutely right, municipalities struggle, and people think KZN is an urban province. Because they look at Durban and they think, look at this big city, this must be an urban province. Yeah. And we're actually a largely rural province, a hugely rural province. And one thing we realized, let's take the town of Jozini. Some of you might have seen the sign to Jozini if you use the alternative route into KZN, there on the Jozini Dam. And it's a very poor municipality. In the Umkhanyakude district municipality, which is one of the poorest district municipalities in the country. That municipality cannot afford to have its own engineers, its own architects, its own quantity surveyors. And even if they could afford it, people of those professions, quite honestly, don't want to go live in Jozini. They want to live in Johannesburg or Cape Town or Pretoria or Durban. So they can't attract the people, even if they do have the funding. So what happens if they want to build a new substation or a new community hall or whatever it is they're building? They have to find very expensive consultants to do it. And I said it, I know there's consultants in this room, so I must be very careful. But what we've then done as a provincial government is we said, but the Department of Public Works Infrastructure has engineers. We have quantity surveyors. We have architects. And we did an MOU with Cocter and with Selga on a provincial level, and we've made all our professionals available to smaller municipalities free of charge. They don't have to pay a cent. They tell us, listen, we need this. And just on one project we recently helped with for a housing, emergency housing scheme, just by helping on the planning phase of it, we saved that municipality 3 million rand. And it's a small municipality. 3 million rand goes a long way in municipalities like that. So I really think we need to coordinate better and get better at less fragmentation within this industry. And I think that's one of our biggest stumble blocks. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. A round of applause there, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks very much, MEC Mayor. MEC Sema, let me hand over to you.
No, thank you very much, and good afternoon to everybody. Now, in my scenario, everything that is infrastructure is under my portfolio now. I used to be the MEC of Human Settlements, which meant I dealt with the social part, and we used to have a Department of Public Works and Transport, which is basically your public works and your roads component. Then in 2022, our Premier actually merged these two departments in what is now called the Department of Infrastructure. So, as the executive authority, I had to firstly reintroduce a new culture, because on the one side of the equation, I had to deal with social infrastructure, which is housing. On the other side, I dealt with public works and roads, which was seen as an expense. So I had to reconfigure what they thought as well pertaining to that. So as a Department of Infrastructure, it was all about building a team and a very clear vision from me as the leader to ensure that the administration got their marching orders in no uncertain terms from me, but also that vision is embedded in our policies, in our frameworks, in the total architecture of a department. And it's embedded in the performance agreements from the HOD to all of my DDGs and all my branches. So that's to ensure that the vision is not just on paper, it becomes a reality. So my vision was quite simple for this new department. Let's future-proof our province. Let's ensure that it becomes and builds an inclusive Western Cape for all of its people. Let's build a resilient Western Cape where infrastructure is not seen as an expense, but as an economic enabler and an empowerment tool for all of our people across the Western Cape. But also, how do we expand through our portfolio the creation of jobs, given that a lot of people only know Cape Town, they don't know the rest of the Western Cape. We have 5 rural districts, which in themselves have very different demographics, which needs to be addressed and needs in a specific area. How do we ensure that we accelerate spatial transformation for those 5 districts outside of the city of Cape Town? But how do we do all of this? By realizing that through innovation and partnerships with the private sector and local government, we can actually extract and connect our people to these opportunities together, but in a sustainable way. And also realizing at that stage already, government does not have all the money that this vision needs, that it is needed to unlock the true potential of the Western Cape in all 6 of our districts. So we then went a step further. This vision became what is now called the infrastructure strategy of the Western Cape. But I was blessed to be a councillor for 6 years. I dealt with the asset portfolio of a district municipality. So I fully understood that for me to get our province to realize the true potential of its assets and its infrastructure, we needed to embed the principle that infrastructure is supposed to be a long-term journey. Not every time or every 5 years a new minister or MEC comes along, that changes. It was to put the wheels in motion for a 25-year plan, which is what we did in under 3 years. That then found its way to become a framework, and we now have what is called the singular pipeline, where I said, if I want to empower all 6 of our districts, if I want to attract private sector investment to partner with my department in our provincial government, I needed to have a clear picture of what was happening inside of my province in terms of the infrastructure portfolio. So we have built in under 3 years the first variation of what is a singular pipeline. I know exactly what national government is doing across our province and the value and at which stage of planning or implementation it is. In terms of the province, I took together all of our other departments because we are not the developer of choice for some of our sister departments, I must be quite honest. I took all of local government's projects, again, the same principle, what's in planning, where is it in planning, and if it's in implementation, which phase of implementation is it in. But then something crucial which was never done in the history of our province, key private sector developments in and through our portfolio across our province. Now, as I sit here, we have created that singular pipeline. We are in discussion with ISA. We have embarked on forming a partnership because the bigger vision is also that the citizens must understand what all of government and the private sector are doing. So that is my vision. It's embedded in government. It's embedded in execution. And the next stage of that is what we are embarking on now, to bring that singular pipeline in a virtual platform, which will be done before the end of July by my team. But because roads plays a crucial role in the movement of our economy in the Western Cape. In March, we launched, and we are the first provincial government that did this. My colleague spoke of roads. Again, to the citizen, they do not care if it's a municipal road, a provincial road, or a national road. For them, it's a tar road. But I deal with the issues of potholes and so forth, where it does exist. So we created the Roads for You app. Again, I'm trying to place the citizen at the center of what we're doing, but using technology and innovation. That app is live. We have just over 15,000 downloads by now. We've managed to resolve over 28,000 issues since March. So innovation is playing a key part. So the vision is still forming. It's embedded in the architecture of what we do as government. But most importantly, I acknowledge the role of national government. I acknowledge the role of all of our sister departments at the national level and all municipalities, but most importantly, the private sector. And the fifth partner which gels all of this vision together is putting the power back in the hands of our citizens by making the processes in this vision citizen-centric. And that is my vision through infrastructure for the Western Cape. Thank you.
Thanks very much, MEC. Colleagues, I have just been informed that we have another 30 minutes. At least that gives us time. So, people that are on the floor, I am going to allow you questions or comments to make from the floor at some point. If the Secretariat can be ready with roving mics. Thanks very much. MEC, let me hand over to you.
No, thanks very much, and good afternoon to everyone. Maybe let me start by saying I'm coming from Limpopo, a rural province, not partially rural like my colleagues because they say they're partially rural. I'm from a rural province, from villages. So, but as a start, let me indicate that business that is here can be assured that you can come to Limpopo and invest. Why? One is because there is political stability and government stability. So in Limpopo, there is no GNU, PNU who are just in charge there. So we don't report to many bishops. It's just one government. So I can assure you that if you come and invest in that type of a province, your business is safe. Our priority is the 7th administration as Limpopo. We said that we are going to look at water, roads, and unemployment. So anything that we are doing as 10 departments, as led by Premier Dr. Popira Matu, we must make sure that the three comes first. So we found ourselves in the Department of Public Works, Roads and Infrastructure. So we're in charge of all the infrastructure in the province, public infrastructure, together with the roads. And we said to ourselves that because one of the three priorities is roads, we are going to then give it necessary attention. That is why we deliberately took an approach to strengthen the internal capacity of the Department of Public Works, Roads and Infrastructure by resuscitating our 36 cost centers across the province. Why? Because cost centers are closer to our people. And like I said, we're a rural province where we depend on villages which are led by traditional leaders. So for them to get services, they need the proper infrastructure at our cost centers in order for them to deliver services. And we said to ourselves that gone are those days where our people will just see a grader when there is a funeral. Let's buy more yellow fleet. We invested a lot of money in our yellow fleet, what we call the khere. In a space of 2 years, we bought yellow fleet of more than 200 million. And that assisted us to also deal with another priority of our province, which is to create jobs. And in a space of a year and a half, only the Department of Public Works, Roads and Infrastructure, we created more than 590 new permanent jobs. And this month of July, we are going to welcome another 238 new permanent employees in the department. So that is why I'm saying we are very deliberate in making sure that we take care of our people. Yes, we are a province that has an average of more than 21,000 stretch of kilometers. And out of that, 13,000, I mean, which is 66%, is gravel. So we need around about 320 billion to can then resurface our gravel roads, which is not possible to get that money. Like I said, we are a rural province with a small budget. Our budget is that closer to eThekwini or Johannesburg. But we have to make sure that we give our people services from that tiny budget. But seated here, we got in as the 7th administration and said, maybe let's do things differently for us to accelerate service delivery, but also to grow the economy of the province. Remember, you can't grow the economy if you don't have proper road infrastructure. We said, maybe let's change how we've been doing things, because in the past, with the little resources that we have to upgrade our roads to be drivable, we were doing maybe 40 kilometers of a road to benefit 5 villages. And in a financial year, you'll find that we do only 5 or 6 roads. Then we said, maybe let's change how we've been doing things to cover a lot of villages in our communities. We then said, 2024-2025 financial year, we are going to give communities 5 kilometers. And guess what? In the last financial year, we managed to appoint contractors for 21 new roads that are constructed of 5 kilometers. This year, we are going to construct another 17. And we said to ourselves that we can't just construct new roads. We also need to invest in maintenance. That is why we are rehabilitating more than 68 roads in the province. So I'm talking too much about roads because we are a province that we can be a rural province, but all of you here, the tomato that you eat is from Limpopo. All the grapes that you are eating here, even if you go to Dubai or anywhere, they are from Limpopo. Avocados, they are from Limpopo. Bananas are from Limpopo. Even mangoes. Yeah. So we are in charge of the country, small as we are. Even in terms of minerals, the largest exporter of platinum mine is in Limpopo. Even the gold mines are in Limpopo. So that is why we invest a lot on roads in Limpopo province, so that as and when these tomatoes are delivered from Limpopo, they get to yourself still in good condition. So that's the work that we are doing in that province. But the challenges obviously will remain the issue of resources from national government, because the attention is only given to Western Cape and KZN in the main. Because even if we look at the road infrastructure, Honorable DM, Sanral, all the budget is going to KZN. So we are appealing to national government that we also need to be taken care of. Now, lastly, with the capacity that we have built in the department, we are now have to put the whole country on our shoulders. The issue of repatriation center, which was in eThekwini. And remember, when I started, I said eThekwini alone, eThekwini's budget alone is equals to that of the province. So now we've taken over as Limpopo Musina. And guess what? The minister just called on Sunday and said we need to clear that site there. Fortunately, because it's very progressive, I said to him that we are ready, our yellow fleet, because we have staff and yellow fleet, our internal capacity is up to standard. But you just have to even transfer money. You can't just say, we must deal with the depushing there. And fortunately, because Dean McPherson, our minister, is very progressive, they've given us money. That is why he was celebrating here. I was even on top of him yesterday to say, you should have told people that this Limpopo Department of Public Works that assisted you. But what I want to say is that we have built capacity in that department. That is why we can able to go and even help all of you here, because it's a burden that all of you can stand for. So as Limpopo, small as we are going to make sure that we don't disappoint you. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, MEC. DM, I get a sense there's some healthy competition that's taking place between KZN and Limpopo. MEC Tomo, let me hand over to you.
No, thanks. I would not be tempted to enter that fray.
Competition.
Yeah.
You want to be in between.
but also to indicate that the latter speaker was the ringleader of the protest that were waging against national department. That's on a lighter note, DM. Well, I think firstly we need to appreciate this platform created by CBE and Public Works and Infrastructure nationally. It is really assisting us to share the experiences and, of course, to learn from one another. Maybe firstly, as responding to the question that you have raised, what is our vision in the respective provinces? In my case, Mpumalanga. DM, I always say in the colleagues in the department, Public Works sits at the nexus between economic development, job creation, investment, and so on and so forth, and service delivery, of course. Now, if you have Public Works that does not deliver on what I've just indicated, then you do not have a works. You do not have an ideal Public Works. So my vision is to ensure that the infrastructure that we roll out on a daily basis in that particular province creates jobs. The infrastructure that we roll out on a daily basis invites opportunities and investment from foreign countries and neighboring provinces. What MEC Raichwen was indicating, most of the problems that he's facing are problems that we are confronted with. The issues of budget are issues that we are also confronted with in the province of Mpumalanga. But what is of lately creeping in, DM, is that we are a province that is now prone to disasters. The shape that we have taken is that we need to invest more on building resilient infrastructure, particularly our roads and also building infrastructure. But we have achieved quite a lot. I'm happy the chairperson of the portfolio committee indicated that they visited our province. We took them to one of the state-of-the-art project that we are currently building, which is Mapulaneng Hospital. The DM was there in Mpumalanga together with the entire sector. We took them to the international food market, which is about to be open already. It is operational. And that is the kind of infrastructure that we want to build, which is going to attract investment and investors from outside the country. We've also built one of the best boarding schools. We are characterizing it as an academic of excellence in the province. So when you go to Mpumalanga, that is why in the sector, those that are responsible for building, they know we're number one in terms of infrastructure rollout, especially building infrastructure in the country. They know, DM is here, you are heading the sector. They can attest to that. So I'm saying, in as much as we're having some of these problems, but we're trying to perform. But I want to indicate to the audience here, one of the major challenges which we have picked as problems is that we have poor performing contractors. But we also have contractors who are colluding with consultant in ballooning rather, the budget of the particular project. So this is one of the issues that we're confronted with in the province. And these are some of the issues that we're confronting head on as part of nipping that particular ill exercise on the part, because we, in our view, that is defrauding the state and that cannot continue to happen. But as it relates to moving from collapse to confidence, our view is that we need to ensure that the applicable legislations that are enacted are applied on daily basis, ensure that there's compliance in every building that we're building, in every road that we're building in the province. So that is what we're doing and trying to do on daily basis in that particular province. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, MEC. MECs, I hear you. I'm gonna take the mic to the audience, but before I do that, I'm gonna leave you with a question so that when you are answering questions or comments from the floor, you take into account my comment, which says, if you are at the nexus, right, of solving South Africa's three problems of poverty, unemployment, and crime, and yet you do not have resources, is there a way of utilizing public infrastructure and public works and ideate around how we can use that to create income or to contribute into the revenue very practically? And in that way, it then also solves some of your problems, whether they are about roads or water. It's an innovation question, because at the moment, I'm unable to say public works does generate money and puts back into the fiscus directly. It's an innovation question. So if the president was to say, Deputy Minister, take your provinces and make sure that public works creates resources and money and deposits into the national fiscus, not through tax, but just by way of being innovative. How would you do that? Because I get a sense that you are innovating, but you are running out of money. But what if you just did not have that money? Because we just do not have it. It's a question for a later period. Can I identify 1, 2, not more than 3 people that want to make comments from the floor? Because if there's none, okay, I was running away already. There's a hand here, there's a hand here. I see 2 hands. Hands that side? None. Okay, I can take the 3rd hand here, right in the back. Okay, please go ahead, ma'am. A brief comment, not unless you want to take us to 2 p.m.
Absolutely not. I'm Mobile Demande, South African women in construction in Gauteng. When I listened to, I did not write a script of what you were saying, but it came out very clear. What is not coming out clear? What is bankable? As much as your vision is to create jobs, what is bankable? You're not saying. How are you going to get the money? You're not saying. So that means women are going to be continuously be deprived and sidelined and not have a target and you are not intentional with your plans. Can you give me that assurance that youth, women, and people with disability, this is intentional? We have a bankable project that we are going to do in all provinces. Thank you.
Thanks, Mama Ngobila. I suspect that question also goes across. Am I correct? Aha, okay. You've got the mic, okay,
Yeah,
sure.
greetings everyone. My question is actually directed.
And your name is?
My name
from?
is Ndabenhle Ntshangase, from Constructure, a contractor in KZN. So my
Okay,
question
just
is
lift
directed-
your voice a bit, we're struggling a bit.
Can everyone hear me?
Now we can
How's
hear
that?
you, yeah.
My name is Ndabenhle Ntshangase, contractor in KZN. Constructor is the name of the company. My question is directed at MEC Mayor. So when you joined office, one of the, or three of your values were clean governance, cost stabilization, but also quality infrastructure. And you're working with particular contractors to make sure that that's happening. But I'm interested what your future-proof method is to ensure that the next crop also has the right skills in order to take it on once the mantle is passed. So please let us know what you're thinking on that front.
Thank you very much. Can I add something that talks about future-proofing against climate change as well? So that it's not just future-proofing for skills but it's also the actual infrastructure that is delivered, yeah? With your permission.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good day. Makawemni from Eswatini, CEO CIC. Yeah, I think the comment by Ms. Mpumalanga, I suppose that is collusion you were referring to between consultants and contractors. You talked about consultants and contractors, whether is it colluding, but collaborating with regards to hiking the price of the value of projects. I think you highlighted something like that. Yeah, in Eswatini, the government has made an attempt to control that issue by doing design and build projects. But then what we have found in order to contain the costs, but then it becomes a problem itself, because over time we've found that contractors work with specific consultants. Hence, independent consultants are now not getting the job. Then the question says, really, maybe what would be the best form of model to do this effectively? Thank you.
Thanks very much. Where am I going next? At the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director. My name is Sethu Loyilane, and I am from an organization called Institute of Building Inspectors.
Can people please speak up a bit?
Oh, my.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, I'll bring a toy voice. I am Sethu Loyilane from the Institute of Building Inspectors.
Thanks.
I am raising on a point around transformation. And I think it's a topic that has been talked about extensively by the speakers before. We have trained 273 building inspectors who are youth, who have base qualifications in the built environment, but trained them to specialize in building inspection in partnership with the University of Johannesburg. Now, these young people, out of this, we have 125 of them who hold trade or artisan-based qualifications. And the reason why we were intentional with raising the number of artisans in this program, it is because we need specialist trades, especially who can specialize in the regulations and the standards. Now, these young people are trained, they are sitting with the skill that the country needs. And we are now looking for partnerships for deployment, that they can be absorbed and employed. They are exportable to all the provinces in South Africa. They exist, they're available. If you're talking about maintenance, you cannot have maintenance program without proper condition assessment of those buildings. So they have been trained to conduct condition assessments. They have been trained to evaluate submissions of plans from municipalities in terms of new constructions. So I'm really rising on that point that we are looking to work with government. I think someone is against me. So the program, was done, facilitator with very minimal funding. You asked the MECs that if there were no money for implementation, what could be done? We have done it as a voluntary association, and we have trained the capacity for the country. We have developed agents. We have developed qualifications for the country. As we speak, the country has qualifications for building inspectors, which are new, which are accredited by SAQA. So we need partnerships with government in working together to solve and to participate with solutions or to this problem that we have of collapsing buildings.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. I'm taking the last question. Am I correct? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Mine is more of.
And your name is?
Oh, so let me start. My name is Chris Campbell. I am the CEO of Consulting Engineers South Africa. I have more of a contribution than a question. I'm listening
appreciate that.
I'm listening to because that's how we are. We're solutions orientated. We bring solutions, not problems. All of you, any one of you that have complaints around collusion between consultants and contractors, if any of those consultants are members of Consulting Engineers South Africa, please report them to us. We need less members, all being honest. We don't need more members. We're not in the market for members who are going to be dishonest. So this is an open invitation to all of you, public entities.
Yeah.
Because unless we command that space as private sector, we're part of the problem. And I invite my other colleagues from our other voluntary associations to take that same stance. Because we can't clean up government on one side only, but clean it up in its totality, including through its service providers. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Very innovative. MEC Toma, I'm going to start from your side and then come this way as we go towards a conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, and going to lunch. Am I correct? Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks. I think Chris has assisted me in answering Matkau, because that is one posture which we have decided to take. Firstly, to engage with the professional bodies, the different entities. I did indicate when I was with CISA last week, Chris, the president of CISA in Mpumalanga, we did indicate that we've got this challenge. So you need to come to part and try to assist us in resolving this. So that is why I thought I should also raise it here in front of CBE to say there's this problem that we're confronted with. Nobile raised a very critical question. I so wish that you were staying in Mpumalanga so that your issues can be resolved, but Ms. Mama Bolo is here. We have taken a deliberate stance in Mpumalanga to say we're going to be intentional in empowering women. We're working very close with SAWIC. A 40% quota has been set aside for women for all our projects in the province. So that is what we're doing. The other issue, I think, which was the last issue by Soto on young engineers. When I was engaging with CISA last week, we committed that we are going to be having an engagement with CISA together, myself and with the young professionals, together myself and the Premier. Because one of the critical challenges that we're confronted with in the department is lack of capacity, particularly on technical skills, TM. So we need to throw in particularly young people, because my view has been consistent that those that have been in the system for some time are now entrenched and they are susceptible to whatever ill activities that are happening there. So we need to draw in new minds that are going to be innovative and try to transform the system. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, MEC.
No,
MEC?
thanks very much. Mine is just one to respond to my sister here, who unfortunately stay in Gauteng with MEC Mama Bolo.
MEC Mama Bolo, I think you are in trouble.
In Limpopo, we are very deliberate, especially on issues of women. From the leadership, the Premier is a woman, she's a doctor. The Speaker of Legislature is a woman, she's a doctor. In the department that I'm leading, CFO is a woman. majority of
HODs.
chief directors in the department that I'm leading is women. So now we don't have allergy of women in Limpopo. We have already met with your Limpopo counterparts. You can ask them. There are projects that are done by women that side and youth and people with disability, live with disability. There are schools that are built by women there. There are roads that are constructed currently with the numbers that I've given you. So I want to request my colleague MEC Mamabolo to look into your issues. Even after this, we'll pursue him. You will see changes very soon. Thanks very much.
Just before you drop the mic, MEC, just before you drop the mic, there's a question about young people that have been trained as building inspectors, I heard.
Yes.
What's your response to that? Are there opportunities for young people to be in the fraternity? They don't necessarily have to be building inspectors only. That's my assumption, right? So just generally, understandably, you're doing well when it comes to the vulnerability of the women folk, but what about young people as well?
No. It's just the same. Remember, some of us were even here on the ticket of young people when we got to these positions. So on the issue of young people, were very deliberate. Just last week, Wednesday, as we're closing the Youth Month, we welcomed 210 young people that were training them appreciative and leadership in the province. And they will be there with us for the next 3 years. The 1.5 year, they will also be doing practical in our departments. So we had our sister, if we have opportunities. Fortunately, our departments, a lot of people there who are working in the public works are old people, so they're going on pension and all that. So there are always opportunities. Thanks very much.
MEC, they're just elderly, not old. Okay. MEC, your turn.
No, thank you. I'll touch on two aspects. The women in construction, I'll just take an example because what we've done through our treasury component in my department, we've developed an app where, as part of my quarterly information, I've asked how many opportunities for youth, how many for women, how many for persons with disability now. In the last quarter, in terms of tenders that we issued, was over 200 million rand. So either if it's a woman outright owned or a woman is part of that company, the data is that just under 500 companies in the Western Cape for the first quarter of the financial year got tenders to the value of under 90 million rand. And it's around about 45% of our overall quarter one spend went to women in construction. So we put our money where our mouth is, and it's probably because more than 60% of my top executive are all female, from the HOD to my DDGs to my lower tier. So it's increasing every year. In terms of young people and bringing them into the sector and giving opportunities, we have a program that is called Masaki Sizwe. We celebrate 20 years this year. And the phenomenal thing is it even targets students from outside of the Western Cape, but focusing on specific fields that must assist the infrastructure sector. And the fact that we've managed to empower just under 2,000 young people in 20 years from across the country, not just the Western Cape. And what we then do is we have now partnered with the private sector who contribute half of the funding for that program. Again, you spoke of innovation. And we then find suitable placement for these graduates to go and work. Some of them work within the department, and I'm proud to say that a number of them stay with our department. If you get the skills needed in local government, which you touched on, we are now thinking of taking a core component of those students which are learning, which are being paid for by our department and the private sector, to start partnering with key municipalities, because, like my colleague said, 80% of all of our success is based on functional and technically equipped local government. If they are not functional and technically equipped, it hinders our progress. So that's my contribution. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. MEC?
Thank you. Let me start off by saying, from him switching from me to the MEC of Gauteng, it looks like Limpopo picks fights with the big boys. But, but we respect them. We respect them for it. And I have absolutely only love for Limpopo. Thank you. And let me start with the gentleman and for that kind offer. And we did it with great success with master builders and problem contractors in KZN and blacklisting. So it's definitely something we will take up. And thank you for making that available to us as an option as well. To the future proofing, now I'm going to try and keep it quite short. But what we need is a fundamental culture change within our public works departments. And that's what we worked quite strongly for. We went through a very rough patch for the first year where we had to clean up house. And cleaning up house is never fun. It's never a nice thing to do, but we had to do it. And now the culture, if you come to the department, people show up on time, they leave, don't leave early. People want to work because 99.9% of government officials in our departments are good people who want to serve their provinces and their people. And once we've now created an atmosphere that I can work in, and that's the biggest part we can do for future-proofing, making sure that the changes we make last going forward. But we also started at every level. So we sat, not long ago, we sat at an 85% vacancy rate on artisans. So electricians, plumbers, and all of that. 85% vacancy rate, which means all our basic maintenance we had to tender out to contractors at a very high cost. Just last week, we hired 25. So we went from 45 to 65 artisans within the department now. And I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but for us, it makes a huge difference and a cost implication. And that's part of our future-proofing. Bringing in more engineers and developing those skills in-house. And it also comes to the other question that was asked regarding bankable projects, and especially focusing on women in the construction industry. We just this week finished one of our big projects, which is the agricultural regional office outside of Nkandla, the nice side of Nkandla, not the bad side of Nkandla. And that building that was built by a fully female-owned construction company. All the professionals working in that company are women. And I can tell you that project, and this is very rare, that project was finished in time and under budget. And this is what women in construction do. And that's my experience. So the She Builds advisory body that we've created, in their very first meeting, they came with a list of suggestions to the department. We were able to implement about almost 50% of those recommendations already, and already we're seeing the results of it, real results on the ground, because that's where it matters in the end of the day. Regarding building inspectors and young people, you know, it's always, and you started off with that point, it's always a struggle of budget and need. And I think the right word that was used here is partnership. If we can partner with the private sector, government, our institutions of higher learning, I think then we can find solutions to it. I did forget about climate change, and it's something I'm quite passionate, so I can't believe I forgot about it. And it's something where we also have to start thinking very differently. It's not just about building resilient infrastructure, but it's also about protecting infrastructure and human lives. 10, 20 years ago, we never had to think about flood defenses. Our coastal, and I know Cape Town has some flood defenses that they're doing. In the West, in the KZN, we don't have flood defenses. But as the tropical storms move more and more south every year on the East Coast, we realize our cities and our towns on the coastal areas are under severe threat. Not many people realize that Durban itself, the CBD, is actually below sea level. So if we get a major storm event coming over the ocean, we're facing a serious, serious crisis in eThekwini. But also rivers, and many people, that's where all lives are lost in KZN with floods, is along the rivers. And we're going out, we meet with instance, with the Indian government, where they do a lot of positive things. Because we also asked ourselves, what's the country that we all know is the best when it comes to flood defenses and holding back the ocean? And we all say the Netherlands. We can't afford to do what the Netherlands does. It's not within our budget, it's not within our reach right now. So let's look at countries that look more like us, like we do. Countries like Argentina, that's done great things in flood defenses. Mexico, India, countries that we can learn lessons from. And we've already now signed a deal, and we're going to send some of our engineers there to go learn skills, because the main thing here is skills transfer. We don't want to pay companies from those countries to come and do it here. We want to learn, find our own solutions, and then implement those solutions to make sure we can withstand the threat of climate change. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. A round of applause. We are still within time, so I'm going to just take a minute to say, so what is coming out of here in my smaller nyana summary? One, public works can drive the economy. So it's a very strategic ingredient to our developmental agenda. The National Development Plan is very clear about what it is that we need to do. So we cannot undermine your role. So we can't undermine ourselves either, especially if we are going to be colluding unnecessarily. So this department is quite strategic to our agenda. It is important because it is through it, the department and its strategy and the work that is being implemented by the various provinces to ensure that there is clear deliverables. Secondly, we have to solve our organizational culture. I'm going to use your terminology, MEC, because the culture in our respective departments, and I also speak for local government, organizational culture will always chow your strategy for lunch, breakfast, if you don't solve the organizational issues, because people that are working in our respective departments and or municipalities, they work if the organizational culture is conducive for them to be able to do what it is that they have to do. With those few words, colleagues, a round of applause to our panel and continue doing the good work. Thank you very much.
And a round of applause for our moderator, the CEO of Salga, Sithole Mbanga. Now, ladies and gents, I'm standing between you and lunch. Lunch will be a 30-minute lunch break. But before we get that, just a reminder, we're going to break into the commissions after lunch. Commission 1, which is No More Collapses, Disaster to Excellence. You're going to be in the back of this venue. So they're going to split it into 2. You're going to be in the back of this venue. Commission 2, that is Public Assets for Public Good and Economic Growth. That will be in the Jupiter room. Please follow the signage. And then Commission 3, which is, so Renee, Commission 3, which is turning plans into projects, fixing delivery in South Africa. That will be right here in the front of the venue. But I need you to do me 2 favors, and I'm going to ask our other sign language practitioner to please join me on stage. Please join me on stage. I'm going to ask all of you to give them a round of applause the way they understand. So a proper round of applause for doing this thankless job and making sure that we are accessible and inclusive. A round of applause. And while you are at that, I'm now going to ask that everyone quickly stand before we exit for lunch. Please stand. And you're going to do me a big favor, and you're going to pretend as if you're going to spell your name. So for A, this is going to be A. Is Mark 3, there we go. This is going to be A. No, we're not going to do the sign language thing. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, right? So if you're Z, you're going to be round about here. So Zikona, you're here. Albert, you're here. So can we try that quickly? So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, roughly, there we go. MEC, Mayra, there we go. I just want to quickly get a selfie. There we go. Now the photo shall show I got a standing ovation from the B and the MC, etc. Please enjoy your lunch, ladies and gentlemen. Can I just please have our MECs, our DM, our counsel for the CBE, can please join us on stage for a group photo, the final group photo. Our MECs, our MMCs, our CEOs of our built environment, our council chairpersons, NHBRCs, BROL,